Hey, what's up, folks? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC on ESPN 3. Souza, Jack Hermansson is our main event down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I think it is, or Sunrise. Don't know where they've been. I know it was supposed to be in Miami at one point, but they've changed it around a little. And a fairly decent card. It's what kind of similar to the card we had last week. The next kind of couple of cards are kind of like that before we hit the pay-per-view in May and down in Brazil. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid card. I like the main event. I'm very interested in that main event. Co-main event, I'm not going to spend any time talking about because it's just a job fest. But there is good fights. Scott, I love the main card, and there is some fights there throughout the card that I'm going to get through very, very quickly. So thank you for all the views, like, comment, subscribes. Last week I had a pretty shocking week, if I'm being honest with you. Kind of fell in love with all the newcomers, even though I think the newcomers are very good. Fiziev got caught, happens in the sport. Sarukian's going to be great. Evolev's going to be great. Overeem did what he was supposed to do. Big win for Roxanne Modafferi, which was quite cool to see. She's definitely making improvements now. So a decent card from Russia. I'm sure that I know they're going back to Sochi at some point later on this year, so that'll be a great card nonetheless. The two Russian cards have been very, very good. So yeah, we're going to get into this one. I'm going to start with this one first because I don't know where it's going to fall. In fact, no, I know where I'll put it. Because Gilbert Burns and Mike Davies, I'll put it on the ESPN. I'll make that the first fight of the night on the ESPN portion of the prelims. So, Court McGee against Diego Lima is first up here. I like Court McGee, but I also like Chad Lepri's last time out, and Diego Lima came out and knocked his ass out. So, I did not see that coming at all. Like a knockout victory for Diego Lima. I think that tells you more kind of where Chad Lepris is at this point in his career. I still don't see Diego Lima winning that many fights in the UFC. He got his win in the UFC. Can he come in here and continue it? I know he won before in the UFC against De Oliveira way back in the day, 2014 or something that was. But yeah, beautiful punch. Put Lepris out. More of a trying to kind of hold you up. Get you to the ground. He's a decent all-around fighter, but nothing's really special. Decent is I think the best word for Diego Lima. Like I said, I don't expect him to win many fights in the UFC. Regarding this matchup with Court McGee here, Court McGee will know what he's about. He's very hard-nosed, a tough fighter to face, and he's just a tough guy. I think he's kind of spiraling down point in his career as well, but I think he's got enough here to just be more durable, just be the harder fighter not the harder fighter, just the harder fighter for Diego Lima to look really good against. I think he's a grinder. He's super like what I didn't like about the Alex Garcia fight was Alex Garcia literally came out and just wanted to grapple, which I think kind of played the hands of kind of Court McGee a little bit. Interesting to see if this one goes to ground because I think Diego's got a fairly decent game. But for me, I'm going to pick the more durable guy, and that's going to be Court McGee to win via a decision there. Women's strawweight division. Sorry, this is not moving here. Court McGee. Yeah, what am I looking at? Angela Hill, Jodie Escobar. This is supposed to be Jessica Penney. Jessica Penney pulled out last week. So yeah, it's my little girl just trying to come in the door there. Apologies. So Angela Hill against Jodie Escobar. I like Angela Hill here. I was probably going to pick Jodie Escobar against Jessica Penney, but I just think that this is going to be a stand-up fight. And I know that Angela Hill got taken out quickly a few weeks back by Randa Marcos. I don't think Jodie Escobar's really got the ground game to really trouble her here. So in a striking battle, I'm going to pick Angela Hill all day long over Jodie Escobar. I picked Jodie Escobar against Jessica Aguilar last time out. I think this will be the last time we see in the UFC. I think Angela Hill's going to fight at range, just land more strikes than what Jodie Escobar. I think it'll be fun for a kind of stand-up fight for a women's fight, but I'm not going to pick Jodie Escobar in this one. I will pick Angela Hill. I want her to win. Pretty comfortable decision. Like I say, if Jodie Escobar's got a semblance of a ground game, maybe try and take this fight to the ground, because we know that Angela Hill has got a pretty weak ground game. I know Marcos came out there, kind of bull rushed her, got her down, got the armbar very, very quickly. But if, like I say, if this one's going to be a striking affair, I only really see one winner. I think she's got more output. I think she's harder to pin down, longer jab, just a little bit faster as well. So I'll go Angela Hill via a decision in that one there. Jim Miller against Jason Gonzalez is next. This was one that kind of jumped out at me a little bit, because I was wondering where Jason Gonzalez was, whether he was cut from the UFC, but it turns out he had a pretty bad injury. We thought, like, when you see, like, this is clearly the step down an opponent for Jim Miller from what he's faced in the last, let's say, February. I think it was a couple of years ago he was fighting Dustin Poirier. I thought he actually gave a great account of himself in that fight. Really hurt DP with leg kicks, and made it a very, very kind of closer fight than a lot of people thought. Then lost to Perez, lost to Trinaldo, lost to Hooker. All tough matchups there. Then everybody and their dog was kind of on Alex White in that fight, and I think I was another one. I was on Alex White, and he came out there and absolutely starched Alex White. But Alex White is not great, to say the least. Then he got Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira's he's a guy that's got some of the most submission wins in the UFC, a dangerous guy at every aspect of his game now, with his striking, with his grappling, and obviously with his jiu-jitsu. So, that was a tough matchup. Like I say, has he regressed this far down that he's losing to a guy like Jason Gonzalez? You know what? Honestly, it would not surprise me in the slightest. Gonzalez I think he's a far bigger guy here than what Jim Miller is. He's had a couple of losses in the UFC. So Drew Dober got knocked out, and then he got submitted by Gregor Gillespie in that last fight there. And when was that fight, actually? September 2017. So he's been out 18 months. That's interesting to me. Like I say, he is a live underdog in this fight, in my opinion, because I think Jim is very hittable. Like I say with Gonzalez, he's not super good in any aspect. He's tough, but he's never going to be. If he ever has more wins, like, I think he's a 500 fighter in the UFC all day long. With the right kind of matchups, he will win fights in the UFC, like his JC Cottrell fight. You give him guys like that, or like new entry kind of guys that are coming in, or say like I don't know, just a guy that they're bringing in on short notice. He will win fights in the UFC, in my opinion. But has Jim Miller regressed that much that he loses this one? He could. I think Gonzalez throws a couple of nice body kicks. He's wide open though when you come forward. If this was to go to the ground, I think this would be Jim Miller's kind of best point to win this fight. This is a tough one for me. I think that Gonzalez is live, but he is coming off a big injury. I think it was an ACL surgery he had. I'm going to pick Jim Miller. Not super confident. I've got this in a very kind of ugly 3-round, 15-minute fight where it's a lot closer. I've seen people like super. I've got a friend that's threw 400 quid, £400 on Jim Miller, and I was like, whoa. But he says to me the main reason is he's levels above Gonzalez, and I'm like, I don't see that. So, like I say, I hope he wins for his sake, because 400 quid on Jim Miller at this point in his career is a lot of money to put on him. But I'm going to go Jim Miller via a very kind of close decision there. Now, this is the fight that just got added, kind of put together last week. Gilbert Burns against Mike Davis. Now, you might remember me speaking about Mike Davis a few weeks back when I was talking about Sadiq Youssef. Those guys had a couple of banging fights on the Contender Series. Really, really close, big hitting fight. And he went out there, gave a great account of himself, then went back onto the local scene. The end of December there, he got a win via knockout in the third. Watched that fight actually today. There's definitely holes in his game you can capitalise on. I think his ground game is a work in progress. And when you're a work in progress against a guy like Gilbert Burns, I don't know. I think it's a rough start in your UFC career, but he's got a lot of skills. Very hard, very durable guy. Tough and durable guy is what I should have said there. But he's facing he's getting a clear step up in opponent from his previous opponent. I think Sadiq Youssef is definitely going to be a ranked fighter in the UFC, but then he's getting another big step up here of a guy who's kind of losses are to Rashid Magomedov, Dan Hooker, Prazares. Last couple of fights, won 3 of his last 4. Jason Sago took him out. Damaret took him out. Took Olivier Aubin-Mercier out pretty comfortably, actually. UFC 231. Before that, those wins I was talking about, he had a couple of really nice knockouts. So he's putting his hands together, and we all know, I don't even have to talk about his jiu-jitsu game. Yeah, that jiu-jitsu game never leaves you. So for him, I think he try and, if he keeps on the feet too long, it gives Davies maybe some confidence there, because I think that's Davies' strong point in this fight here. So for me, I'll pick Gilbert Burns via submission. I think he gets him to the ground, and then from there, like if he gets Davies down, I think he's just levels ahead of what Mike Davies is. But I'm really interested to see Mike Davies in the UFC. Still young in his career, like 6-1, sorry, I should say. So that's really kind of interesting to me that he's in. I know it's short notice and so on, but I'd like to see him maybe fight a couple more times before getting that other opportunity, maybe on Dana's show or whatever. But he's got the call here. He's got himself a tough fight. I just think that Gilbert Burns is going to be a tough fight there. So I'll go Gilbert Burns via submission in round number 2. I'll go with that one. This is a fight that's caught my attention. Carla Esparza, Virna Jandiroba. If you don't know about Virna Jandiroba, she is the what was she? She was the Invicta champion. Where obviously she went in there. She's an undefeated fighter. She's did very, very well in what she's did there. Like, but what we haven't really seen, like, our jiu-jitsu game is exemplary. Really good control, good solid jiu-jitsu. What else is good with that? Our wrestling game kind of complements that as well, and that's a decent thing, especially coming into the UFC. And I mean, she's getting a massive step up here, in my opinion. She's facing a former champion from who she was facing before. She's beat a couple of UFC vets, and when you say vets, Lisa Ellis, Erica Almeida, I don't think they want to fight in the UFC. But like I say, great jiu-jitsu, very solid wrestling. She really clinches up well, which she can get takedowns off of as well. So she's always moving forward, and she's very strong. Like when she gets a hold of someone, it's not like just that you're falling to the ground. She like takes you down pretty hard, slams you pretty hard. And in every one of her fights that I've watched, she's not had a problem getting a fight to the ground. But like I say, she's been facing Morandin and Mizuki Inoue and so else. But when you've got here is Carla Esparza, who's a wrestler herself, not the greatest defensive wrestler. I think her offensive wrestling is really good. But her defensive wrestling lacks a little bit. We saw she gets taken down. I mean, you can't really take anything away from the Tatiana Suarez fight because Suarez is an absolute monster, and we've seen that. The Gadelia fight got taken down. I thought she won that fight personally. Even though she got taken down, I thought she outstruck Gadelia. She looked far better on her feet in that fight, as good as we've ever seen her. She beat Calvillo before that, where she can implement the wrestling with a couple of takedowns and held her down a little bit. Murray's fight, she took her down. So this is going to be interesting here to see how, like, can she stop takedowns? This is the big thing here. Virna's going to be the bigger fighter coming in here, and like obviously got that confidence of being a champion and never losing. And with that ground game that she's got, it could definitely cause problems for Carla. I edge Carla Esparza on this one. I've seen a lot of people super confident in Virna Jandiroba, and I can see why. Honestly, I can see why. Because her top game is very significant, and we haven't seen people really get out of her top game or a jiu-jitsu game. But she has got a step on opponent here. I think I've seen some people saying that this is going to be easy money as well. And when I see that, I'm just like, dudes, come on. Just if you go and pop in their names on Twitter, and you'll see some people say that, and some people I know as well, which is crazy to me, because Esparza's tough. Esparza is a very, very tough fighter, and like I say, especially Jandiroba coming in here on short notice as well. So that interests me. I think she will get takedowns, but I think Carla will get back to her feet. And I think on the feet, we haven't seen a hell of a lot from Jandiroba on the feet at all. So it's hard to kind of gauge, what she kind of has there. So, and the improvements with Carla Esparza with her hands, it is huge from when she came into the UFC, with her output and her combination striking as well. Like I say, this is the fight I'm actually kind of interested in betting wise. I don't know why. I do pretty well with women's fights, but this kind of one really screams out to me as maybe a Esparza, and she's going to be probably underdog money as well. I know it's pretty much a pick'em right now, and Jandiroba was an underdog at one point, but I'll go Carla Esparza via a very, very close split decision. I think she gets the rub of the green this time and wins this fight via split decision. But I'm interested to see Jandiroba with the against a new opponent, a new caliber of opponent is what I should say. So I'll go Carla Esparza to win that one there. Andrei Arlovski against Augusto Sakai. I've got Augusto Sakai here, but not confident at all. Like some of his striking, I like the fact that he strikes while moving back. And it's always kind of looking to kind of strike first and be careful through that. Arlovski, when I heard this matchup, he actually jumped out at me as something I thought I might actually like in this fight, but then it's like picking freaking Andrei Arlovski in 2019, and like he's been fed to these kind of younger fighters kind of coming through, and Arlovski, was he like two? I want to say he's 2-8 in his last 10. Like the guy loses more than he wins, and I know, but like some of the people that he lost to in those, like that streak of 5 losses, were top guys. Obviously Stipe and Overeem and Ngannou, but he's literally been fed to these new heavyweights coming to the UFC. So your Taiburas, or back at the point when Taibura came in, Albini, Taito Ivasa, and so on. Lost to Walt Harris last time out. That could change to no contest because Walt fought for a prohibited substance or whatever it was, and that got overturned there. Like I say, Augusto Sakai, not really great in any aspect. I remember watching him way back, I think it was Bellator actually, 4 or 5 years ago. Remember he lost to Czech Congo via a very close split. But like I say, I don't think he's overly that great. I think he's tough though. These heavyweights can bang. Arlovski, I think if he takes one kind of clean shot, he'll go down. Like I say, I'm not super confident in this fight. I haven't really watched all that much on it, if I'm being honest with you. It'll be a fight that I'm kind of passing in every aspect. This is probably one of my lesser confident picks, maybe because I just haven't watched as much. Been trying to enjoy this nice weather we've actually got in Scotland for a change. We actually got some sunshine and like temperatures in the mid-20s, or close to the mid-20s. So that's, you only get a couple of those days a year. So I've been out watching, I've been out in the sun enjoying time with my daughter instead of really watching fights, which is something that probably might happen a little bit more during the summer here, but we'll see. I'll pick Sakai. I'll pick him via knockout in the second round there. And the main fight of the prelims, Ben Saunders against Takashi Sato. Sato coming in here from Pancrase, I want to say it was. Yeah, it was Pancrase. And wasn't overly impressed, if I'm being honest with you, but I think I like him in this fight here because it's Ben Saunders. I think that, like I say, Ben just doesn't win all that many fights in the UFC, and he's not particularly tough. He's not particularly good in many aspects, in my opinion. I think like everybody's on about his guard game and his ground game and his jiu-jitsu game, but we don't really see it all that often, if I'm being honest with you. Takashi Sato, Really nice jab, which I noticed. I think it's his right hand or his left. I think it's his right jab's a really nice weapon. And kind of what he does with that is he throws it out, and he's always got the left cocked, ready to go and throw a big left strike when he needs to. Doesn't throw many combinations, but his single shots are pretty accurate. Does a great job of kind of sticking with the right jab and kind of keeps that going. And then as the kind of fight goes on, he throws the left hand a little bit more as the fight goes on, and he gets more confident with the jabs that he's throwing and so on. And he will throw head kicks. He will go to the body with kicks as well. Cuts off his opponents well. So get them to the cage. He's got some judo that I've seen in there. But his trips against the cage are one of his biggest aspects I saw. So his right jab and his trips against the cage are something that I really liked when watching him. And I think his biggest part of his game is ground and pound. Heavy ground and pound. And that's where I think he gets this fight here. Like I say, I don't really rate Ben Saunders much as a fighter. I don't think he's particularly tough. I think he's chinny. Like I say, I think his jiu-jitsu is kind of talked up more than it actually is. This will probably be the last time we see him in the UFC, in my opinion. Got arm triangled by who was it? Moraes. Then got knocked out very viciously by Lyman Good. Yeah, I just don't think we're going to see him stick around in the UFC here. So I'll go to Takashi Sato. Gets the trip up, gets him against the cage, gets the trip there, and I think he unloads with ground and pound, and he stops Ben Saunders. I'll actually go second round. So moving on to the main card here, we've got Roosevelt Roberts against Thomas Gifford. Roosevelt Roberts is going to be my most confident pick here. When I watched Thomas Gifford, not really impressed all that much with what I've seen. I think his takedown game was his takedown defense, was not great. I think that Roberts has definitely got that in his kind of back pocket a little bit that he uses. His last couple of wins are over the same guy, Trey Ogden, where I think in that fight that Ogden both times got takedowns in those fights, but then he used his much better ground game and his jiu-jitsu game to get the wins there. So yeah, like I say, what I've seen is not super impressive to me. I think this is a good fight to really build up Roosevelt Roberts, who got a nice impressive win over what's his name, Darryl Horcher, who is, like I say, he's not great either, but what he is he's a veteran of the sport. He's been around, he's been in the cage with some decent fighters over, well, not decent fighters, but he's been in there with Khabib. He got multi-bits in that one, but that his last two performances from Roosevelt Roberts, you've seen that he's got a very, very high caliber jiu-jitsu game, but he is still very young in the sport, and all of his wins are via knockout, stoppage, I should say. So he's got his mix of submissions, very dangerous, very long, very lengthy, and he caught Darryl Horcher in that guillotine where he literally had the dude sideways against the cage, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? Caught him, that looked super nasty. In that first round, I thought he was a little bit not slow, didn't really throw all that much, was very patient, and was just kind of biding his time. I just think in every aspect of this fight here, I think that Roosevelt Roberts is just going to beat Thomas Gifford up, and I like him to win via a stoppage at some point, probably in the middle part of this fight. Like I say, he seems like one of those fighters that doesn't go gung-ho straight off the bat. He's got great wrestling himself. I think he'll use that to get takedowns, and then he'll stop at either ground and pound or submission. So I'm going to go Roosevelt Roberts to win via I'll go TKO in this one. I'll go TKO end of round number 1. John Lineker against Cory Sandhagen. Are they finally going to get this fight together? Because I've been looking forward to this one for a long time, and obviously John got injured last time out, and Cory Sandhagen got a late replacement in Mauro Bautista, who I actually think Bautista is going to be fairly good once he gets the right amount of work in the UFC. But what we've seen from this guy, from Cory Sandhagen, super dynamic, very aggressive, big for the division. But this is obviously another massive step up from anything he's faced in the UFC. He's got John Lineker, who's one of the biggest, obviously a massive power puncher, just one of the toughest guys in the UFC, in my opinion. Everybody's going on about the size of these two because Sandhagen is a big dude. He's going to have the reach, I think. Not as substantial as I remember. But is he going to come out and stand with someone like John Lineker? I don't think he should. Because when guys try to stand with John Lineker, it doesn't end very well. You have to kind of mix up like TJ Dillashaw did. TJ Dillashaw fought a perfect fight in that one. Engaged on the feet, but then timed it well where he got takedowns. I think Sandhagen's got a little bit of that in him. I think he can. I think he can fight to a high level. But I just think this is a little bit too soon in his career. I could be made proved wrong in the next couple of days here. But I like John Lineker. Like I said, they were supposed to fight before I was on John Lineker. I need to see if Cory Sandhagen is at that level yet. I've seen some people betting on him at dog money. I don't think it's overly a bad bet. I would just rather have my money on someone like John Lineker in this spot. But I know a lot of good handicappers out there who I watch kind of week in and week out. They put some sizable money on Cory Sandhagen. So, like I say, I don't know whether I'm going to bet John Lineker. I would like a decent line. I don't know what the line is. I've not looked at any lines for this card all that much, except for the Carla Esparza one, I think it was. So, yeah, I'm going to go John Lineker via decision. I think that the aggressiveness, I think Sandhagen will start very aggressive. Yeah, like I say, he started really aggressive against Alcantara and got caught with a big shot. If he does that in a fight like this, John Lineker will be all over him. But what we've seen out of that fight from Sandhagen, the guy's very tough. There's no quitting this guy. So he's going to come and he's going to try and aggress someone like John Lineker. I like John Lineker in this spot. But like I say, I don't think that the shot on Sandhagen's a bad thing if you've got super confidence in him, because he's got a lot of good attributes and it's going to be a big fight in the UFC for many years to come. I'm going to go John Lineker via decision, though. I think they're going to engage a little bit, and I think just the more powerful shots of John Lineker are really going to come to the fore here and getting the decision win. So, yeah. Glover Teixeira against Ion Cutelaba here. I'm actually going to pick Glover Teixeira here. These guys were scheduled to fight earlier on this year. I think it was in Brooklyn. That got pulled there. And Glover, he fought in that card, actually. I totally forgot who he fought against. Carl Roberson, of course, yeah. And I thought Carl Roberson could have had an all-around game there that could actually did very well against Glover Teixeira, but Glover showed he's still got some decent striking, and he's shown that his ground game is always very dangerous. He's a very, very dangerous fighter across many aspects of the sport, Glover Teixeira. But I do think he's at that point in his career where he's descending instead of ascending. He kind of trading wins and losses. Before that, he lost to Corey Anderson, beat Smirnov, lost to Gus. Obviously, that was a tough fight where he took a lot of damage in that one there. And like I say, I love watching Cutelaba because he's super aggressive, very, very strong. And he's looked good in his UFC. He's got a couple of wins, a couple of losses. Absolutely annihilated Gadzhimurad Antigulov after a kind of rough start there. Destroyed Enrique de Silva. This to me screams out if Glover Teixeira can survive early. If he can survive early, I think he can win a decision here. I think he can really mix up with his boxing, get some takedowns, maybe get some top position, move to different positions on the bottom and establish on the ground. And saying that, Cutelaba's got a decent, he comes from a decent kind of a grappling background. But I just think if this to me is Cutelaba early, if he can land that big shot in the first round, he will win. If he doesn't, I think over 15 minutes, I give it to Glover Teixeira, and I'm kind of edging more for that. So I'm going to put Glover Teixeira via a decision in this one here. I think that's what I think it's happened. Like I say, it's one of these fights. I think Ion will either catch him early, knock him out, or over the 50 minutes, I think Glover can win the fight. And that's kind of where I'm going. I'm going for a 15-minute decision win for Glover Teixeira in that one there. But yeah, I'll not be betting Glover Teixeira. That's for a fact. There's another fight here that's one that caught my eye very, very quickly over here. because it was supposed to be Li Jingliang against Alex Oliveira. That had violence written all over it. And then we get Mike Perry stepping in here to replace Li Jingliang. So that was interesting to me. I'll be honest with you, my initial lean was Mike Perry. And then as I was watching fight, it's just, I can't do it. His fight IQ is terrible. Like, we all know he's super dangerous with his strikes. But in that last fight, I mean, he got back to his feet against Cowboy and then initiated the takedown again. And then there was videos after why he was wondering how he lost that fight. I'm like, dude, how can you not see that? How can you not see that your shitty fight IQ cost you that fight? Because if he got back to the feet, he could have gave some problems to Donald later on in that fight. And like I said, I think the Paul Felder fight was close. If Paul Felder didn't snap his arm in the kind of early part of that fight, I think Paul Felder could have been more in that fight later in the fight. But kind of Mike Perry kind of took over with the size and so on. Before that, he lost to Max Griffin, fought a terrible fight. Really, all he wanted to do was come forward and throw bombs. And I think we may have seen. I think this is his last fight in his contract actually as well. So this is going to be interesting to see if the UFC keep him around if he loses this fight. Like I say, initially for some reason I was on Mike Perry. I do think he's got a fairly decent chance to win this fight if he fights smart. We know that Oliveira is a really good, solid fighter. He's like dangerous on the feet, very strong in the clinch, very strong with his grappling. Got a really solid ground game as well. But he got busted up. I think I don't want to say, it's hard for me to sit here and say that there's quitting a fighter because I'm not a fighter and these guys put their body through something hellish every time that they're getting ready for a fight. But the Medeiros fight, I know he got himself hurt. The Gunnar Nelson one, he started off very well in that first round. I think he won that first. Going into the second there and ate that massive, massive elbow of Gunnar Nelson, which like opened. There was a meme going around of him like with Icelandic writing on his forehead because it did look like some of the letters that the Icelandic people use. So that was interesting. But he was in the ascendancy in that fight and just got caught and it got hit with some hurtful strikes that made him kind of look for a way out. Not look for a way out because it was a nasty cut. That's wrong of me to say that. But yeah, I can't. I'm struggling to pick Perry. I really am. I was initially on him, and then I was like, I can't do it. I think the overall game of Oliveira, he's more. Well, not when I say his overall game is more dangerous. Mike Perry is dangerous at all points of the fight here, but regarding all around skills, I think Oliveira is a more dangerous fighter. Like I say, long language striker, very aggressive, very strong. And he's got a decent ground game as well, a very kind of top-heavy game, and it's hard to get out underneath that. But Mike Perry's always live. Like I say, I don't. If you're going to bet Mike Perry, I don't think I could do it. But fair play to you for taking the shot. I just couldn't do it. I know in the UK, the lines opened -111 each, and I was really seriously. This was 2 weeks ago. I was really seriously going to unload on Alex Oliveira, on Mike Perry, at that. And then it's obviously went and changed where Mike Perry's a big underdog and Alex Oliveira is the big favourite now. But I'll go submission actually for Cowboy Oliveira. I think he gets him to the ground and just the superior kind of ground game of him, the strength, and the momentum he gets when he switches up in the ground with his takedowns and just moves to different positions. And I just think he's a scary guy to face as well. But if Perry can come out early, really put the hands on him early, this could be interesting because then he could actually maybe break Cowboy Oliveira because we've seen that he can be a little bit breakable at times. Co-main event, Greg Hardy against Dmitrii Smoliakov. I'm going to pick Greg Hardy. The UFC just want this guy to win, so they're bringing Smoliakov back after he got beat by blimmin' Cyril Aska. Went out in the European scene, I think it was, or I don't even know what scene it was, and got a win in that one there. Asian Challenge. Wow. I want to see, is this guy, what's his record? I never even seen the fight. So he was 7-9. Okay. So yeah, he's been out and faced an absolute can. UFC of like, we'll bring this guy back and Greg Hardy can beat up on him. Like I say, Greg Hardy, he looked absolute terrible against Alan Crowder. If he doesn't land the shot, then he's there to be beaten all day long. Smoliakov is one of the worst heavyweights I think we've ever seen in the UFC. I'm going to pick Greg Hardy. I don't really want to speak about that fight any longer either. So yeah, I'll go Greg Hardy knockout in the first. And the main event of the night, we've got Ronaldo Jacare Souza against the Joker Jack Hermansson. Really good fight. And what I'm interested in this fight here is they had, you know how the UFC have like a gathering of fighters, like just an announcement of fights, just to run out through the summer and so on, all the way up to like, I think it's 239 or whatever it is, where they got all the fighters gathered there. And somebody asked Jacare a question and he's like not interested in this main event whatsoever. He's like, Jack's not in the top 10, which I think he is. I think he's number 10. He's got no motivation for this fight. He said the UFC are guaranteeing him a title fight if he wins this one. That is bullshit, and surely he must know that. There's no way the UFC are going to make that fight when with Adesanya with an interim strap and Whitaker with the full strap. He's not in line. They're going to make that Adesanya against he is in line, but he's not in line next to fight for the belt. I just don't think it'll happen. In my opinion, I don't think it will. And Jacare, in my opinion, he does not want this fight. He doesn't care about this fight. I think the Romero one, he could avenge the loss, which was a very, very close fight. A big name, obviously, Yoel Romero. But he's got a young, hungry lion in Jack Hermansson here who's an absolute savage. If you look at an all-around, like, if we look at Jacare, everybody knows about his ground game. Legendary. But people sleep on his striking. And I think that's what, like, I bet Chris Weidman last time. I've kind of been looking to fade Jacare for since the Whitaker fight. I think that did I pick him in the Gastelum fight? I think I did actually. I thought he would beat Gastelum. I actually thought he might have got that decision there. Then I picked Chris Weidman. I thought Weidman was going to outlast him. I think he was on his way to winning that fight and then got caught there. But like people sleep on his striking. Like he's got some big knockouts. Derek Brunson. He obviously got that massive kind of ground and pound knockout of Vitor Belfort, but he's got some decent striking, and you cannot forget that because you're so worried about him trying to take you down that his striking is still legit as fuck, pretty much. And he's got some big power, and like in that fight with Weidman, that was, I think, a little bit of accumulation of the durability going of Weidman, but still the big power of what Jacare has, and he's put that all together pretty nicely. But like I say, if this fight goes to the ground, I'll be super interested because I don't think Jack's that bad on the ground. But obviously, there's levels to this. Jacare is probably levels. Well, I shouldn't say probably. He is levels from anything we've seen from Jack Hermansson. But Jack Hermansson's, like, I've been championing this guy for many years since he came in, since I first seen him in the Cage Warriors. And he got a big spot in the Barboza Gaethje fight a few weeks back. At the end of March, I think it was, so it was like a full month ago. Got a big co-main event spot, went out there, landed a massive takedown on David Branch, and then within seconds put a nasty guillotine. And like Dave Branch is a legit black belt, and he got tapped out within seconds. And like I say, we haven't even seen like in that fight, we never even seen the ground and pound, the pressure that he throws. Jack Hermansson's a legit fight. He's going to be a top 10 middleweight. He is a top 10 middleweight now. So this is a massive step up, though, from what he was facing from Mearshart, Talis Laitis, who was on his way out, to Dave Branch, who I think was barely a UFC top 15 guy, in my opinion. And now you're getting a perennial top 3 guy, top 5 guy at least, in Jacare Souza. But the big thing that interests me here is just Jacare, and I've read some articles and I've seen a couple of interviews. He does not care about this fight one bit. And that's scary against a guy like Jack Hermansson, in my opinion, who wants it more than anything. You can see just by reading some articles and interviews today. The guy, this is huge for him. He knows how big this is for him. And yeah, I'm just interested to see how this goes and how Jack's going to play out. How I think he's going to play out is, I think he's going to just try and strike a little bit with Jacare. Now, Jacare's, like I said, he's dangerous in every facet of the game, so you have to be careful. And then I think his best way to kind of win this fight is to get it into these later parts of like 2 into 3. Because Jacare, and try and play smart with the strikes you're throwing, try and hurt him with some strikes. Rob Whittaker fought that. Like, if you can stop the initial takedown, like Rob Whittaker did in that first round, then in the second round, Jacare was a completely different guy, was faded a fair bit, very hittable. His hands were down by his waist. His feet were flat. You could literally pick off that guy, and Rob Whittaker did that. Now, I don't think Jack Hermansson can do that as much, but I think he can land big shots, big body shots with kicks, maybe inside kicks, inside low kicks, and so on. But that's how I think he wins this fight. And I've seen people say, no, he shouldn't be in this spot. He probably shouldn't. I think he's a fight or two too early in this. But I actually think he's going to thrive on this opportunity here. And I kind of can't believe I'm going to say this, because I'm going to pick Jack Hermansson in this fight here. I think that his pressure is going to pay dividends late in this fight, and I think he's going to hurt Souza, and he's going to fold Souza up and get stoppage with that ground and pound, which I've been going on about for the last few videos there. So, oh, fuck. Actually, oh my God. Picking against Jacare. Am I doing the right thing here? Oh, fuck it. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Jack Hermansson. I'm going to go knockout in the third round here via ground and pound. I know I'm going to take some shit for that because a lot of people are on Jacare Souza. But I think Hermansson, I do think he's got the tools to really put in a performance here against Ronaldo Souza. But, oh my God, so hard picking against Jacare. I'm going to stick with, though, Jack Hermansson, TKO round number 3. So that is my picks for UFC Fight Night 150. We're back next week for Ayaquinta against Cowboy in Canada, I think that is. So until then, leave your comments in the drop-down box. I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll put my most confident, least confident list up in the next hour or so once I write that all out, so keep an eye on that. But until next week, guys, appreciate the time. See you next week, and all the best.